Hey everyone, thanks for joining this session. We'll begin in just a minute. I hope everyone had a nice break after our keynote and that you got out to the exhibit area. There's a big contest going on called the Passport. Make sure you get out. We thank all of our sponsors. This session in particular, Ambition. Make sure you get out and visit the Ambition exhibit during the next break. So just give it a few more seconds here before we jump in. Once again, thanks for coming. 2 days filled with thought leaders, tips, ideas, maybe a little controversy as well. We'll see. This particular session is all about scaling. When the AAISP did its annual research, we found that over, I think it was 75% of the companies we surveyed were definitely growing, adding, not just replacing, but adding incremental sales headcount. And I think you're going to hear a little bit about that today. As a reminder, use the chat, use the Q&A. We may have some time at the end. Otherwise, we'll try to get your questions answered online. With that, I'd like to introduce your moderator, Liz Johnson. Liz is no stranger to the AAISP. She's on several of our groups and committees, and it's good to see you again, Liz, and it's all yours. I'll be back with 2 minutes remaining at the end to help close out.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Bob, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the Scaling for Success webinar today. Rumor has it that we are bringing the heat, and the rumor is true. So I will be moderating your session today, and I'm part of the global sales enablement team over at Stripe, who is certainly scaling like crazy at this point in time. So not only am I moderating today, but I'm looking forward to learning from our panelists. And with that, let's have our panelists introduce themselves, starting with Lori. Welcome, Lori. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Liz, and hello to the audience. Good morning, good afternoon, possibly good evening, depending on where you're from. I am so excited to be here and be bringing the heat with such a wonderful set of industry colleagues. So I'm Lori Harmon, and I've spent a career primarily in software sales. Currently, I am the global leader for virtual, digital, and renewal sales at NetApp. I'm also the author of 42 Rules for Building a High-Velocity Inside Sales Team. Again, thrilled to be here and look forward to bringing the heat with my fellow panelists. So thanks, Liz, and back over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lori. And Anthony, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, glad to be here. Anthony Zhang, Vice President of Sales here at Blissfully and Orlando Chapter Officer of AAISP. I know we were asked for a fun fact in this meeting. So fun fact is that I am actually proposing to my girlfriend this year. So it's a very exciting year.
Well, hope she's not listening.
I hope she's not.
I'm hoping.
I'd be surprised. She can't listen.
She's not. It's fine.
Your secret's safe with us, Anthony. Thanks for joining. Amy, welcome. It's nice and bright where you are. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you. I'm ready to bring the heat. I'm wearing plaid. So there is that. Anthony, I hope it's going to be in Vegas. I'm just going to put that out there. So my name is Amy Volas. I am a practitioner of sales for over 25 years. I've sold over $100 million in revenue myself. And sales is my first business love. Startups would be my second. And I founded Avenue Talent Partners. It'll be 6 years in October to help startups hire sales leaders and CS leaders. I'm also co-founder of a little place called Thursday Night Sales, which is where Anthony and I met. And Anthony is also a product of Avenue Talent Partners as we work together to help him land his role at Blissfully. So I am ready to bring the heat. We've got a lot to talk about. Anthony can verify or validate whether I am full of it or not, because he's been through it firsthand. So here we go.
Awesome, Amy. Can't wait. And then last but not least, Mark, thanks for joining. I love your Ambition t-shirt, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Speaking of bringing the heat, I would definitely plug Amy's Thursday Night Sales. They bring a lot of heat on Thursday nights. I am Mark McWatters. I lead the sales team at Ambition, Ambition is focused on combining accountability and encouragement for metric-driven teams. I think we've all lived in places where it's only accountability. That's no fun. Or it's only encouragement. Why are you cheering for me when we keep losing? How do we combine the two and create that scaling for success? My fun fact would be my first sales job was an appointment setter for a mobile home business that was kind of scaling, I guess. I went to college in Knoxville, Tennessee, go Vols, worked for a mobile home group. I've done everything from that to being in B2B sales as a direct individual contributor, now leading teams. So excited to be here and join what is a great panel. So let's do it.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Mark. And the good news is that scaling for success can mean any industry, whatever you're selling, Mark. So what we're going to talk about today is certainly applicable to what you used to sell previously. Okay, so for our audience out there, when this wonderful group and I met previous to this to plan this call, we outlined 5 major factors when scaling for success. And I'm going to rattle them off to you right now. And then our panelists are going to go through some key ideas and key questions to consider. Okay, so 5 major factors. The first one, identify your overall go-to-market strategy with guiding principles. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, build an operations framework and foundation and identify the overall success metrics and KPIs within that operations foundation. That's number 2. Number 3, identify the hiring and talent process. Spoiler alert, Amy's going to be giving you some tips on this one here. The next one, number 4, make sure that you create clear role definitions and accountability within each role, accountability and encouragement. Thank you, Mark. Within each role. Okay, that's number 4. And number 5, make sure that you're creating career pathing with training and enablement, not only to support the current roles that you have, but also as your employees are growing their career within your company. Okay, so that's the top 5. Create the go-to-market strategy, build an operations framework, identify the hiring and talent process, create clear role definitions, and you got to nail the career pathing with training and enablement. Those are the top 5. So Lori, let's get started. In your experience, you've created these go-to-market strategies. What advice do you have for our audience today?
Well, thanks, Liz. And some people may wonder, why do we need a go-to-market strategy? Why can't we just jump in and get started? Because we're all drivers, right? Well, your go-to-market strategy, it's like when you're going on a road trip. If you're going on a road trip, you have a destination. And in order to get to the destination, you need a map. So your go-to-market strategy is your pathway to get to that end goal. So you must start with the overall big picture and have that strategy. So a few things that you could ask yourself when you're putting together your go-to-market strategy, which will define all the things that come after this. All the other 4 points that Liz made all fall out of your go-to-market strategy. So what are those questions? Well, what product are you going to sell? Who are you going to sell it to? Who are you competing with when you're selling that product? What is your competition's go-to-market strategy? And how are you able to differentiate? And what advantages do you have over your competition? And when I talk about target customer, what accounts are they in? Like, what's your account profile? What is the person's title? Are there specific verticals you're going to go after? And how do you get in touch with that contact? Because if you can't reach the contact, it's really hard to get them interested in your solution and then get a deal over the line. What are some of your price points? If they're really, really, really big, you may not be able to say, go with a virtual or an inside sales team. You may have to lend yourself to a field sales team. Are you planning to sell direct, or are you going to sell through channels? That is also a key decision for your go-to-market. And what are your average deal sizes? And what's your sales cycle length? So these are just some of the questions you need to ask to figure out your go-to-market strategy. And once you have that, you can decide the type of team that you require, the roles on the team that you need, and then you can flesh out the things that all the rest of the panelists are going to talk about, like Amy, like what are the requirements and the criteria for those different people in those different roles. So that is what I'd like to share about go-to-market strategy today. So back over to you, Liz, for our number 2.
Got it. Love it, Lori. So we're on this road trip. We've got our map. We have the gas stations. We have the cities we're going to stop in. We're pulling over. We're taking pictures. We've got the hotels. We're ready to go. Couple things I heard you say, Lori, and the main thing I heard you say is that we're focused on our customers.
Yes.
We're
Yay!
focused on our users. How are they purchasing? How do they like to receive information? What's the differentiation between our product or our service versus our competitors? I love that. We're focusing on the end user. Anthony, your comments on the go-to-market strategy here.
Yeah, I absolutely love that road trip analogy, and that your go-to-market strategy is your pathway. I think for me, one of the things I've found is that a lot of executives think that scaling means people, and they think that there's more butts and seats, which means there's more revenue. But there's this notion that sales ops and rev ops, it doesn't impact revenue, when in reality, without really spending time to build out a strong framework and infrastructure for your CRM or in your benchmarks reports, it's basically like what Lori is saying. You're driving cross country and you know where you want to go, but you don't have a map or a GPS. So you know ultimately where you want to go, but how do you know if you're going the right way? How do you know if there's not a better, faster route to get there, right? And how do you know if you're going to come up against a traffic jam or a detour, right? So you got to spend the time to put in the right foundations in place so you can build a scalable, repeatable, measurable process and sales machine, right? So, when I first joined Blissfully, I focused on 3 main things. First of all was my CRM infrastructure, right? I had to make sure that I was measuring the right things. Am I measuring the same things that my product team is measuring? Am I measuring the same things that my marketing and my CS team are measuring, right? So getting that infrastructure in place and making sure that you're all aligned and looking at the same things is crucial. Once you do that, the second thing I did was I started building benchmark reports around our conversion metrics, right? This was my check engine light. This allows me to communicate what's going well, what's causing challenges, and so that I can bring in my other department heads to say, hey, let's take a look at this, right? What's our MQL to close conversion? What's our SQL to close conversion? Do I need 5 qualified opportunities, or do I need 50 qualified opportunities, right? So establishing those leading indicators of success, right? And then the last thing I did was that cross-departmental alignment, right? So, hey, I'm looking at these metrics. Are these the same metrics that you're looking at? How can we continue to work together to grow and scale together?
That is excellent, Anthony. So you got to make sure that your vehicle can support your journey. More people just doesn't necessarily mean more revenue. Love the point about the CRM infrastructure and the criticality of that CRM. Your benchmark reports, that check engine light, but also those are your stops along the way. Those are your hotels. You're pulling over to take pictures. Hey, check in with the other departments, check in with your friends, check in with them to make sure that you're on that path. Excellent.
Exactly.
All right, so we've talked about go-to-market. We've talked about building an operations foundation. Amy, tell us about hiring and tell us about talent, please.
So I'm going to try to contain myself because I have a lot to say and I don't want to dominate the conversation, but this is where things are going to heat up. And I think to continue on with the analogy of taking a road trip, I find that so many companies and so many people looking for jobs put themselves in the back seat when they should be in the front seat. So let's start there. And what I mean by that is this is your career. This is your life. This is where you spend a lot of time. This is your business. This is your ability to grow. And to take such a laissez-faire approach, which so many people do, is a problem in my opinion. So it starts with intentionality. And contrary to trying to get to a destination, I think we automatically think like, I got to get there fast and I got to get there yesterday. And I'm of the ilk that you need to slow down to go a heck of a lot faster later. So intentionality is the name of the game. And I find one of the things that people really make a big misstep, what that looks like is thinking about future state. So we're going to be the next Uber for whatever, or we are going to be this thing. And that thing is 10, 15 years away. And you hire for that without thinking about the reality that you're in today, you are hiring the wrong person. And in sales, there are lots of different shades of gray. For sales leaders, there's over 48 different kinds of sales leaders in tech. And so what I mean by that intentionality is to think about the fact that there are lots of different kinds of people. Do not use the process as a way of figuring out what you need. Candidates will feel that. Your employment brand will suffer for it. And you're going to spend a lot more time and money trying to fill these roles. And ultimately, your risk exponentially increases if you don't know what you want and you're not clear right out of the gate. So that's the first thing, is being intentional. What is it that you need? I subscribe to a scorecard methodology that helps us anchor in the fact of, these are the things that we have sussed out that are germane to the task at hand for the short term and the near term. And as we grow, we can revisit, but this is what it takes to be successful in this role. And no, not all salespeople are created equal, or sales leaders, excuse me. It's not a one size fits all. So what is the work that actually needs to be done for your business, for your buyer journey, for your segment? Is it inbound? Is it outbound? Do you have a marketing function even? How is that supporting the team? These are all things that people need to realize that go into the recipe for success when it comes to whom you need to hire. In addition to that, and I'll leave everybody with this, realize that it's a two-way street. It's not just you wanting to hire, or it's not just your career. You need each other to be successful. And so when you lean into that, one of the things that I would suggest people think about as they're building out their hiring profile, more than 15 million people changed jobs since April. Sales is the number one. Yeah, exactly. Liz is a shining example of that. Anthony is a shining example of that. Keep in mind, the market is bananas. It is the hottest market I've seen in 25 plus years. So everybody is looking to hire. People are considering multiple opportunities. This is why I preach that scorecard. Put yourself in the front seat so that you make good decisions. I just got an email right before this from a gentleman that said, I made a mistake. I've never seen such a bad place in such a short amount of time. And I took a laissez-faire approach to this, and it's really important. So there's lots of stuff. There's lots of opportunity. There's lots of clutter. These are the ways to cut straight through to get it right.
Love that. Just a reminder for our audience, if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A or in the chat, and our producers will get them over to us. If we can answer them during this call, we certainly will. If we can't, we'll follow up. So Amy, the first thing I heard you say, you have to put your seatbelt on before you strap the kids in the car on this road trip as well. You got to take care of number one, and you have to be intentional with that seatbelt, and you have to be intentional with your own roadmap. But you got to make sure you're enjoying this ride. You're not just focused on the destination, because you've got a car full of people with you coming on this journey with you, and you got to check in with them. And your co-pilots are just as important as you, the driver, going across this journey. Sound about right, Amy?
Yes, and that would be candidate experience. Sorry, I got to contain myself. I have so much.
Keep going, Amy. We've got a few more minutes. Keep going. Keep going. This is a
I don't
big
want to take away the
process.
Mark has a lot to say too, so I don't want to take away from that. But it's what I mean by it's a two-way street. And I think there are plenty of companies that I talk to that are stuck in the past of, well, it's my hire. This is my money. This is my business. You work for me. Good luck hiring, and good luck keeping people. Because I'll tell you right now, we live in a very big, small world. In this digital age, it's very easy to back channel. People talk. There are all sorts of ways that people can review and connect and communicate. And what I'm afraid of is when you have that attitude, and that's truly what's happening for people like me that lean into passive recruiting, that call into companies. I know who's who. That's a lovely, lovely crop to cultivate and poach from. So people are ripe for the picking. If you're not paying people what they're worth, if you are not providing people with the flexibility that they need in this crazy world, if you're treating candidates poorly with an 80-point checklist of unrealistic expectations, or making them run through hoops to have your role, or having them talk to people that aren't germane to the hiring process or decision-making process. These are all things that I mean by candidate experience. I'm going to stop. Mark, you've got a lot to say. I'm not trying to bogart.
Well, I'd love to take this baton for a second
that.
because when I think about my parents or even 10 years ago, there was this employer-led economy. I'm lucky to have this job. I'm just so grateful for all things that ambition, giving this job. Now it's employee-led. Employees speak up. They have expectations of their own. When Amy gets this email about making a mistake, like that's the employee who's going to fix the situation versus I'm just lucky to have this job. I'm sure I'll figure it out. And so in this great resignation that's happening, the expectations on an employer are higher and higher than they've ever been. And that's how it should be. And one of the things that we focus on in a lot of ambition, and Anthony hit on this, is creating clear expectations to especially the frontline employees and the frontline managers. People like me and the people on this call, we have all kinds of great reports, right? We have all kinds of insights into our business. Does the frontline manager, who might be some of the most important people at your company, do they have similar simple insights and expectations? To use my parents again, it's my dad was in sales for 30 years. And certainly there was this, if you hit your number, I won't talk to you. That's great for an A player. But if you're scaling for success, newsflash, you're going to hire a couple B and C players. And that middle 70% that you're focused on needs clear expectations for what right looks like. As a sales leader,
number 4, Mark, in our 5-step process, right?
Yeah, that car is moving quick. I'm already into the clear expectations of making sure that those B and C players know what right looks like. Again, my dad's example, that used to be micromanagement. In 2021, as a sales leader or any leader, you're expected to provide that GPS, that path of how you get there. When I talk to a VC, for example, and they want to know, hey, what's the sales side of ambition look like? They're not asking, hey, how many super personable sellers do you have that create great relationships? Hell no. They're asking, hey, how many opportunities do you need to convert from stage 1 to 2 to 3 to close 1 to close loss? Anthony talking about coming in and building that for the team. That sales team formula is critical for how you scale. The one thing I want to add here, because I've been here before, is there's definitely someone in the audience going, great, Mark, but like, I don't have the data I need to get there. Start building it today.
System that Anthony was talking about.
Yeah, don't wait. Like, even if it jeopardizes some historical data, start building the infrastructure to get there. Make your best guess to start. Like, you have to start measuring something. You can ask a lot of people about what that should be, but you can get close enough to start measuring and start to create clear expectations for those frontline managers, those frontline employees on what right looks like. Then the last thing I'll add in for the clear expectations is recognize the hell out of those people who are doing those frontline jobs. In sales, we're definitely guilty of, hey, you closed one a deal, like, yeah, let's celebrate you in front of the company. That's really cool. The reality in a work from home environment is there are so many missed important steps that happen to get to that closed one deal. How do you create recognition for the frontline employee who feels, let's call it, more disconnected from you as an employer when they're sitting in the corner of their bedroom? So recognize that. I guess the last piece again is to create more of a clear expectation on what happens when people succeed. You can't guarantee the career path. I love talking about SDRs because I feel like they're some of the most forgotten, unrecognized people in businesses that are doing, world according to Mark, the hardest possible job. And career pathing around SDR is, again, around clear expectations. Tell them they don't have to be AEs. Here at Ambition, we have a CSM development program that an SDR can get into. We have an AE development program. We have support development program. If you want to go into support, give them options and let them tell you what path they want. And when they succeed, you have ways to point them in the right direction. So I know I'm hitting on a lot there, but create clear expectations, recognize the hell out of people who are doing the right thing, And especially for those forgotten about roles, how do you create a career path where people see what could be next? And in this employee-led economy, that's critical for how you retain your folks.
Mhm. And Mark, Amy mentioned that millions of people have left their roles, including a few of us on this call for new roles. And we're looking for those A players that you mentioned, Mark. But what about those B and C players who are looking for that next step? They might not be A players right up front. Can you touch upon the criticality of training and enablement as it relates to that career
Dave, can you not
pathing?
turn on the washer now?
Yeah, absolutely. The B and C players are often the most forgotten about, even though a manager needs to be spending more time with them, enablement needs to spend more time with them. So once you have that formula in place, like Anthony outlined, and you're looking at your conversion rates and you can see where gaps are for those B and C players, then you as a leader, your enablement team, your training team can diagnose what needs to happen next. For a B and C player, the biggest gap is just giving them the clear expectation of what right looks like. But once that exists and you look at conversion rates for where those are falling below where they should be, then you have a coaching opportunity for enablement, leadership, training to create a documented program. And documented is a little bit of a four-letter word in sales, like, oh man, don't document this coaching session. Well, guess what? If you don't document it, in 2 months, you don't know what the heck you talked about 2 months ago. And how do you hold someone accountable to progressing? So a B and C player, that kind of documentation is critical. And frankly, they should want it because it shows how the manager is developing them too. So those are a couple points that I would highlight around that piece.
That is great, Mark. Thank you. So what I'm hearing a couple things for our audience out there. If you yourself are looking to take the leap, when you are interviewing, as Amy talked about, ask the questions about training and enablement and career pathing. And if you're not an A player yet, or you don't think you are, that's okay. It's okay to take that leap. And the other thing I heard you say, Mark, is that, I just lost it. The other thing that I heard you say, driving across country, I will get it back. Oh, building the training and enablement program so that you can get those B and C players to A. Sometimes on your road trip, Mark, you might lose your path like I just did, and that's okay. You just redirect. Your GPS is going to redirect you. There we go. We have a couple minutes left here, so I want to make sure that all of our panelists have the opportunity to provide us with some final thoughts and comments. Just a reminder to our audience, if you do have a question, go ahead and put it in the Q&A. We can probably squeeze it in. So Lori, can you provide us with your final comments here?
Sure. Thanks a lot again, Liz. I just wanted to follow on with something Anthony said. He talked about the infrastructure. And a lot of times when we're proposing new tools, sometimes the reaction will be, well, a tool's not going to solve your problem. And maybe it won't solve your problem. But I can tell you, I've seen so many instances where your infrastructure is the inhibitor. So it may not be the full solution, but it can prevent a company from scaling. So I just want to focus on the fact that that's such an important thing to get it right. And oh, please don't work on the spreadsheets. That's one of the banes of my existence when people have to work on spreadsheets. But it may not be the only thing you need, obviously the CRM, but it's so critical to not block your ability to scale. And then in terms of some of the comments Amy made, the intentionality, that was just so important to point out, that being intentional when you're doing a search or when you're doing hiring, even though you have your map, and I'm so glad the road trip analogy worked. When you have your map, you're going to get there one day, but don't hire for the end, hire for where you are today and because there's very different skill sets as companies evolve over time. So make sure you're hiring for where you are today. Unfortunately, maybe everybody won't scale, but they'll probably sense that themselves. And then you'll have to hire different skill sets as you go along that path. So I think that's really critical, especially if you have 15 million people have changed jobs. We know the market's insane right now. So you have to be very intentional to get those right people that are a good match for what you want to do and for your company. So you have that two-way street that she was talking about.
Got it.
And finally, Mark, thank you so much for mentioning SDRs. I think you're so right. They're underappreciated, underrecognized, and they build the pipeline for your future. They're putting the fuel in the tank before you leave on your road trip, or at every gas station. They're putting the fuel in your tank, and they are under-recognized. And the career pathing is really important to keep them there for a while and then give them upper opportunities. They are the future potentially of your sales organization or of other departments like your CSM department, like you mentioned. So
Love it. Lori,
I learned
we've got
a ton.
about 30
Thank you.
seconds. I'm going to bounce around. Anthony,
Now.
15 seconds, your closing comments.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to echo what Mark was saying. I really liked how he was talking about training and coaching and enablement around those B and C players. And I think once you have those benchmark reports and conversion metrics built, then as a sales leader, you can actually be very, very surgical with your coaching, right? So you can give them one thing to work on. For example, if their SQL to close rate is lower than average across the team, you can focus on very specific things like setting better next steps, asking for the sale, conducting a better discovery, or running more effective demos, but focus on just one thing based on those benchmarks.
Love it. One thing. Amy, then Mark. Last few seconds here. Amy, go ahead.
Last thing. So salespeople churn nearly 3 times more than any other role. And it's the #1 role that tech companies are hiring for. When it comes to career pathing, we do a phenomenal job of bringing people into the sales profession, and we do a phenomenal job of escorting them right away out the door, and then we turn them off. And so just because somebody's a B or C player doesn't mean that they're bad, and it doesn't mean that they don't have a role, and it doesn't mean that you should fire them, pip them. I know of a company that puts people on pips in the SDR role after a month if they miss their number. That's horrible. So just because the SDR role isn't working for someone, maybe they are a great CS person, maybe they are a great AE. It's not linear. There are lots of different shades of gray. So think about it this way: right person, right role, right work.
Love it. Love it. And Mark, to close us out before we pass it back to Bob.
Encourage your people around metrics that matter, period.
Encourage your people around metrics that matter. I love it. Bob, did we bring the heat in this session?
Oh man, you gave all of us watching a lot of work to do, which is a good thing. A good takeaway. Look, thanks so much. We're just a minute over time here. We got about a 10-minute break before the next 2 sessions start up. One being customer first selling, then the future of workspace. Where are we going to be working in the future? Thanks so much. Get out to the Ambition booth, get your passport stamped. See you later. Thanks, panel. Great job.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Take care and good luck.